Cynic is an American progressive rock band incorporating experimental music, alternative, metal and jazz fusion elements. Founded in Miami, Florida, and currently based in Los Angeles, California. Their first album, Focus, released on September 14, 1993, is widely regarded as a landmark release of the progressive metal genre. Cynic disbanded in 1994, but reunited in 2006, and released their second album on November 17, 2008. Traced in Air was released through French label Season of Mist, followed up by an EP titled Retraced on May 18, 2010 and an EP titled Carbon-Based Anatomy on November 11, 2011. Their third studio album, Kindly Bent to Free Us, was released on February 14, 2014. The current status of the band, a partnership between Masvidal and Reinert since the genesis of the group, is in dispute, with Sean Reinert claiming that the band is disbanded, and Masvidal claiming the opposite. A recent concert October 3, 2015 at Euroblast Festival featured guest drummer Matt Lynch. History Demo era Cynic was formed by guitarist Paul Masvidal and drummer Sean Reinert in 1987. In 1988, the band made their first recording, simply called the 88 Demo. After the demo, Paul Masvidal took over vocal duties, while continuing to play guitar. The band also added a second guitarist, Jason Goebel. Another demo followed in 1989, titled Reflections of a Dying World. 1989 also brought the addition of bassist Tony Choi. In 1990, the group went to the studio to record their third demo, plainly titled 90 Demo. In 1991, Cynic signed with Roadrunner Records and recorded their fourth and final demo, known as Demo 1991. Recording Focus The recording of Cynic's full-length debut album Focus did not begin immediately after the band signed a new contract with Roadrunner Records. Paul Masvidal and Sean Reinert had played on Death's 1991 album Human and were obligated to take part in the supporting tour of Europe. During this tour, Death ran into serious financial trouble, which resulted in Masvidal and Reinert's gear being confiscated for 6 months by a UK promoter. During this time, the band parted with bassist Tony Choi. Choi was replaced by Sean Malone. The band planned to record Focus in August 1992, but the day they were to begin recording, Hurricane Andrew struck Florida and destroyed both Goebel's home and the band's rehearsal space, leading to months of delay. The band used this time as an opportunity to write new material, much of which is featured on Focus. Tony Tiergarden was eventually brought in to do the aggressive vocals, but all the vocoder vocals were recorded by Masvidal. Focus was released internationally September 14, 1993. Cynic toured extensively worldwide throughout 1993-94, including the Dynamo Open Air Festival in May 1994. Asked in a 2012 interview on prog-sphere.com about Focus material, Masvidal says, "Sometimes you just burn out on material and we have toured Focus quite a bit. It does have a history and it obviously had an impact as an album, but at some point you do have to move on. With another album under our belts we unregistered trademark LL have enough material to really give people a whole body of new material to focus on instead of the past. But I enjoy Focus and to me it does seem like a record that represented something for us that was really honest. And I think it was a solid album, so it unregistered trademark cool that it got some recognition." First disbandment musical and personal differences halted work on a second studio album, as the group disbanded, with most of its members turning to side projects. Goebel, Masvidal, and Reinert, with bassist Chris Kringle and vocalist-keyboardist Aruna Abrams, formed the short-lived Portal. Masvidal and Reinert released an album with a more recent project, The Indie Actor on Spoke, on SPV Records, and Kringle also played with them, touring the UK in 2005. The members of Cynic loosely reunited on Gordian Knot's second album, Emergent. Reunion. In September 2006, Paul Masvidal announced that Cynic was reuniting to perform during spring-summer of 2007. During June-August 2007, he played 15 shows across Europe, predominantly at major metal rock festivals. The setlist consisted of songs from Focus, Portal's demo, a cover of Mahavishnu Orchestra's Meeting of the Spirits, and a new song, Evolutionary Sleeper. The reunion lineup featured founding members Masvidal on guitar vocals and Reinert on drums. Goebel, the longtime guitarist who played on Focus, could not participate due to family and work commitments, and David Mavicinski was brought aboard as a replacement. Malone, who played bass on Focus, was unavailable due to teaching and work commitments, and Chris Kringle, who played bass on the 1993 European tour, was brought in as a replacement. All aggressive vocals were handled by pre-recordings of Tiergarten. All keyboards were covered by Masvidal and Cynic using guitar synths. In early 2008, the band announced plans to complete a second studio album. Malone rejoined the lineup and Dutch guitarist Tijmen Kruwitnier of Exvius was added, the latter contributing aggressive vocals. Traced in Air and Retraced equals. Traced in Air was released internationally November 17, 2008 on Season of Mist, followed by Robin Zulist being added as touring bassist. The band played at the Wacken Open Air Festival. The Traced in Air tour cycle began in autumn 2008 with direct support slots for Opeth on their European tour. Starting in February 2009, Cynic toured North America with Meshuggah and The Faceless, and beginning April 15, 2009 Cynic toured North America in support of Dragon Force. During the 2010 tour in support of Between the Buried and Me, along with Scale the Summit and the Devin Townsend Project, the band performed live an experiment titled Wheels Within Wheels. Shortly after unveiling this new work, the band announced a new EP coming soon on their MySpace blog. Masvidal revealed in an interview the plans for the coming EP. Retraced is an experiment for us, an opportunity to turn 4 songs from Traced in Air inside out and to share something new. In our exploration, we've created music that is part sci-fi prog folk, part psychedelic rock, part minimalist restraint. These interpretations feel channeled from another galaxy. For the most part, the tunes reference some of our favorite musical forms and in our own curious way. There is no vocoder, no traditionally busy Cynic riffs that are some of our most signature sounds, but the music retains its song structure, integral melodic sense, harmony and lyrical inspiration. Later blogs on MySpace revealed that the new EP would be titled Retraced. In May 2010, Cynic announced plans for their first US headlining tour. Titled Retraced/Refocused Live, the tour found Cynic performing their debut album Focus in its entirety, among other tracks. The tour was co-sponsored by Decibel magazine as its inaugural Hall of Fame tour series. It kicked off on July 22, 2010 in Los Angeles with Intronaut and Shithmia as supporting bands. The tour ended on August 13, 2010. The final show of the tour took place in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It was the first time in 16 years the band returned to their hometown to perform. In December 2010, the band announced that bassist Robin Zulist and guitarist Tijmen Kruwitnier were no longer in Cynic due to logistical and various other reasons. In the same announcement, Masvidal and Reinert set the approximate release schedule for Cynic's next album, stating that the new Cynic release should be coming in late 2011 on the Season of Mist label, and, in addition, Hey are also working towards a remixed re-release of their classic recording Focus. Cynic will remain as a duo, utilizing a collective of guest musicians and situations. Masvidal recently announced on the Cynic forum Sean and I are keen to the idea of Cynic evolving into a collective of sorts, depending on the album/tour, etc. It allows for a lot more creative flexibility, plus we get to tailor each situation as it arises. Traced in Air was essentially the beginning of this idea. We love playing with different musicians as it is, so this opens up lots of possibilities. Cynic are represented by lawyer Eric Grief, who Masvidal and Reinert have known over 2 decades since their time and death. Carbon-based anatomy and kindly bend to free us equals. Cynic's website announced that the band was working on a new album and the first baby steps into this gigantic process are being taken right now, creating little embryos of songs that will turn into fully fledged Cynic tunes over the course of the following months. On September 6, 2011, Cynic announced a new EP titled Carbon-Based Anatomy would be released on November 11, 2011 in Europe, and November 15, 2011 in the United States. The artwork was designed by Robert Venosa, the artist behind the cover artworks of Focus, Traced and Retraced, shortly before his death. All bass parts on Carbon-Based Anatomy were recorded by Sean Malone, who had also previously recorded the bass parts to Focus and Traced Air. Paul Masvidal describes this new EP as a both a philosophical as well as a musical journey, one that begins in the Amazon jungle on the lips of a shamanic wise woman and ends in outer space. On October 10, 2011, Cynic uploaded one song from the new EP titled Carbon-Based Anatomy, and announced that Brandon Giffin and Max Phelps would be playing live with the band. Brandon Giffin is a former bassist for The Faceless, and Max Phelps will play the second guitar and provide backing vocals. The band completed a North American and European tour in support of the EP in November and December 2011. Commenting on a musical shift from metal elements in an interview on prog-sphere.com, Masvidal says, "I think every record kind of develops its own thing based on a process, and I don't unregistered trademark T really know what unregistered trademark S gonna sound like until we unregistered trademark really doing it. I think Cynic was always outside the box and never a traditional metal band to begin with, so we unregistered trademark probably going further in a direction that unregistered trademark LL sound more like Cynic and less than anything else familiar. Really, unregistered trademark S too soon to say right now. The material exists, but not as a production. The unregistered trademark read just little songs, so we unregistered trademark LLC." In March 2012, Cynic released via Season of Mist an album of demos that were produced as a follow-up to Focus back in 1995, entitled The Portal Tapes. On December 12, 2012, Cynic announced through their official website that Masvidal, Reinert and Sean Malone were entering the studio in trio mode to record their fifth release. They revealed the title of the new album and the album cover on the 10th of November 2013, on their official Facebook page. The album, Kindly Bent to Free Us, was released on February 14, 2014. Breakup rumors and statement of Sean Reinert. On September 10, 2015, Sean Reinert announced the disbandment of Cynic due to artistic and personal differences. Later that day, however, Masvidal claimed that there was no disbandment, and that Reinert did not consult with the other bandmates on the issue. He also announced that the band will continue in one way or another. On September 18, 2015, it was confirmed that Cynic would perform without Reinert, and would recruit Triescape's drummer Matt Lynch to fulfill a festival commitment, Germany's Euroblast Festival on October 3 as scheduled. Musical style: Cynic's first recordings feature a more punk, thrash and hardcore sound, but in the 1990s their sound changed towards a highly complex, experimental and extremely technical form of progressive metal, while still retaining their death metal roots. Many influences from jazz and jazz rock fusion can be heard on their debut album Focus. Focus has both growls and robotic vocals, using a vocoder. The offshoot Portal later released a demo recording that continues even further in the direction of progressive space rock, refining and softening up their sound. Cynic's 2008 album Traced Air melded together the styles and influences heard on 1993's Focus with the more progressive-oriented Portal approach. The result had Cynic put less emphasis on its extreme metal elements, with new guttural vocalist Hyman Kruitner playing a smaller role than Tony Tiergarden did on Focus. Additionally, Paul Masvidal all but abandoned his vocoder robotic vocals, opting instead for a more natural singing voice, with a subtler although noticeably vocoder layer. Noting the journey from metal to the progressives, the New York Times proclaimed in a positive review of Traced Air that Cynic should be understood not so much alongside any metal bands but along with the radical harmonic progressives in the last 45 years of pop and jazz, composers like Milton Nascimento, the Beach Boys or Pat Metheny. Members: current, Paul Masvidal guitar, vocals, vocoder vocals, Guitar synth, Sean Malone Euro bass, current touring, Matt Lynch Euro drums, former, Sean Reinert Euro drums, Max Phelps Euro guitar, vocals, Timon Cruitney Euro guitar, Death Growls, guitar synth, Robbins Lister Euro bass, Santiago Dobles Euro guitar, Jason Goebel Euro guitar, keyboard, Tony Choi Euro bass, Chris Kringle Euro bass, Tony Tiergarden Euro keyboards, Death Growls, Jack Kelly Euro vocals, Mark Van Erp Euro bass, Russell Mofsky Euro guitar, Esteban Steve Rincon Euro vocals. Former touring, Brandon Giffen Euro bass, Dana Cosley Euro keyboards, Death Growls. Timeline. Discography, studio albums, Focus, Traced in Air, Kindly Bent to Free Us, EPs, Retraced, Carbon-Based Anatomy, compilation albums, The Portal Tapes. References. Bibliography, Wagner, Jeff. Mean Deviation, 4 Decades of Progressive Heavy Metal. Baslian Points. ISBN 978-0-9796163-3-4. External links, official website, Cynic official Facebook page, Sean Reinert official Facebook page.